Danger! There's a zombie girl running around. Matt, we have Gina Mazany representing Alaska, taking on Brazil's Priscila Cachoeira. Matt, when I think about this fight, it kind of boils down to two different styles, and you're going to hear that all of Fight Week. For Priscila Cachoeira, the real sales pitch on her to get a fight whatsoever with Valentina Shevchenko, who was coming down from 135, who had fought who had fought Amanda Nunes twice, was, well, this is a knockout artist at flyweight. We're really going to kick this division right off on the right foot. And then Valentina Shevchenko outstruck her 96-2 if we're just going off significant strikes. And it was disgusting in a bloodbath, and you haven't seen Mario Yamasaki ref in the UFC since. But after that, there were a couple more losses. Molly McCann, she got out-grappled in that one. She got outstruck. Then she fought Luana Carolina in a fight that was back and forth, and it was an interesting fight, but she ended up losing that one. And then she had a performance of the night bonus when she knocked out Shanna Dobson and absolutely planted and threw, and holy smokes, it was a good flurry of action for Priscila Cachoeira. It was what we were waiting for. It was the bill of goods that we were sold when she was coming into the UFC fighting, and I can't stress this enough, Valentina Shevchenko. How crazy is that? Now, Matt, I'm going to let you take over. How crazy is it that Gina Mazany's UFC debut was against a former title challenger in Sarah McMahon? And also, how crazy was it that we were there?
If Drake made a song about both these fighters' careers, it would have been started from the top, then we fell quite a bit from there. Because it kind of was the case. Sarah McMahon, all the way at the top of the division. Gina Mazany's best win up until that point was over a fighter who was 2-1 in her professional career. Could you imagine beating someone who was 2-1 and then the UFC calling you up being like, hey, you want to fight an Olympic gold medalist? Because my answer would be no. I'm going to be very honest about that. My answer would absolutely be no. Now, the craziest thing about that fight, and the craziest stat I can give you about that fight, was that Gina Mazany actually missed weight at bantamweight. So it was always really weird to me, or it was really weird to me, when I first heard that Mazany was going to move down to flyweight. I just thought, hey, it's kind of a weird match. She was big for bantamweight, or at least seemed so physically, because Gina Mazany, one of those fighters who, I always think about John Jones when I think about this, got big into powerlifting. She, I think it was the national kettlebell champion. I don't know if she was the champion or if she had just competed at the event.
Was on it involved at all?
Pardon?
Was on it involved at all?
They might have been. I don't remember. But I do know Gina Mazany big into competitive kettlebell lifting. So there's a fun little fact. But this really will be an interesting fight and the definition of a clash of styles. Because with Mazany, we've seen it. When she strikes in the UFC, it never ends well for her. And I mean never at all. Look back at the Macy Chiasson fight. And yes, Macy is a ridiculous Muay Thai striker. Don't get me wrong. But Gina went out there like throwing two jabs like she was Canelo and just got lit up at distance. My problem with Gina Mazany's striking is that she just reacts a lot to what her opponent's doing on the feet, and you can tell that she is a much more natural grappler. And you don't need me to tell you, and I understand her level of competition hasn't been the best throughout the UFC, but just look at her Rachel Ostovich fight. On the feet, she's a little bit awkward, don't get me wrong, but the second she gets that fight to the mat, she is absolutely dominant in her positional control. And not just to the point where she's staying on top like she's Jake Shields, she's getting good damaging shots off with her ground and pound. So there's something there with Gina Mazany that you can improve, and that there's definitely a skill set that could eventually make its way into the top 20 or into the top 15 at 125. Because with Mazany, I felt like we were seeing an extremely green fighter, her first fight in the UFC, but she is definitely built upon that first fighter who we saw against Sarah McMahon all those years ago.
And she kind of had to leave the UFC briefly to get a little bit better, but I think really the camp change probably did her quite a bit of good. I mean, going from Extreme Couture to Glory MMA and Fitness, she has the Tim Elliott connection. But one of the things that we talked about in Tim Elliott's preview before he fought Jordan Espinosa, it was like, okay, well, we have these good wrestlers and good, well-rounded fighters. And I went back and I watched the Tim Elliott interview beforehand, and he said, my wife's been working out and training a lot with James Gallagher. And at first I went, what, like SBG's James Gallagher? Yeah, but they both gained a couple of different things. Then Tim Elliott goes out there, beats the crap out of Jordan Espinosa, airs his dirty laundry, gets him cut from the UFC. Gina Mazany fights Rachel Ostovich and, well, didn't really reveal, like, OnlyFans passwords. I don't know OnlyFans all that well, but Gina Mazany looked great in that fight.
Did.
Physically looked really good at 125. Again, weighed 125.5. For Priscila Cachoeira, again, really good striker. More of a boxer than she is a complete striker.
Are you a really good striker if you only knock out Shayna Dobson and you get outstruck in all your other UFC fights?
Yeah, she beat Rosie Duarte on the regional scene. But again, Like, you look at it, you know exactly what Cachoeira does. She comes out of Academia Team Figueiredo.
High guard.
With the Figueiredo brothers, I had to write it down. One of her coaches, it was Jose Carlos Guimarães. And she also had, and I find this one of the more interesting people to see on the Instagrams getting ready for a fight, Michel Prazeres getting ready with Tractor. So if you look at, Tractor, if you look at him, what is he? Well, a guy that couldn't make 155 to save his life, but a short, thick man that can wrestle till the end of days. Maybe not like Gina Mazany, but it's somebody that's halfway decent to see there that at least they're training or they're just posing for the gram.
That's one of those, like, yeah, I played one-on-one against Kevin Durant. He beat me by 21. I didn't score. I just don't know if he can learn that much from Prazeres because he is so much bigger. And that's really my issue in this fight. It's weird because when I think of Cachoeira, she could probably make 115, whereas Gina Mazany, I would almost feel like belongs more 135. Or at least that's what I assume going into this fight. Because here's the thing, and I'll openly admit this. In my mind, Gina Mazany's so much bigger than Priscila Cachoeira, it's not even funny. I look at this matchup like it's Godzilla versus King Kong until you actually see Godzilla versus King Kong, and then they had this whole backstory for why King Kong was the same size. There's not the biggest size discrepancy between these two like I'd originally assumed going into this matchup.
So the last two things I have, and these are neat, these are party stats. If you look at it for Priscilla Cachoeira, she was supposed to fight Courtney Casey on Halloween. That was the Anderson Silva fight against Uriah Hall. Spooky. Botched weight cut was the reason why she pulled out of that fight with cast iron Courtney Casey. Also, Matt, this fight is to determine the Queen of August. The Queen of August 1988. These women were both born on the same day in the same year. It's crazy. Matt, if we look at the odds for this one, Mazany opened a minus 300 favorite. She's minus 209 at this point. Priscila Cachoeira plus 230. She's now a plus 169. The odds corrected themselves right off the bat. If you look over on Tapology, 981 total votes, 69% going with Mazany, 88% by decision. For Cachoeira, 32% have her to win by knockout, but I don't know. It's a really tough ask. Again, you look at the Shanna Dobson fight. Dobson can wrestle, but she just kind of also planted and threw. And Cachoeira hit her with a crazy right hand and knocked her out. Like, knocked her out.
Yeah, Shane Dobson. I've done my Shayna Dobson piece. I'll just let it be for now. Cachoeira has a puncher's chance, and she has shown the ability to defend at least basic takedowns in the Molly McCann fight. But my issue is that Gina Mazany is a wrestler. When I think of Molly McCann, her primary skill set's her boxing. Now, yes, she's a decent grappler. She can go out there and get takedowns, but that's what Gina Mazany does. And the fact that Priscilla's basically been able to get taken down every time she's gone in there with a semi-competent grappler, I just see this fight being more of the same. I think Priscilla can go and land a big shot. Don't get me wrong, but I think it takes more than one big shot, especially at 125, to hurt Mazany. So I'm going to have to pick Gina Mazany at the end of the day.
Both of us going with Glory MMA and Fitness's Queen of August 1988, Gina Mazany, to get the win. Can't wait for the fight. Big time main event. Michael Chandler, your 3-time Bellator lightweight champ, taking on Charles do Bronx Oliveira. Can't wait for it, Matt. Great fight. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.